baseline metabolism. Baseline metabolism is a place where people can live. This is your ketones for life. When I look at my first year and a half, I was probably at KetoCONTINUUM number 5 for most of that year. I put my food into an 8-hour window. My 8-hour window didn't start until around noon, so I was eating pretty late at night. You do the work in this. I did have to really work at not having breakfast. At that time, I still was having my morning coffee drink filled with fat. I put heavy cream in my coffee. I put MCT in my coffee. I put butter in my coffee. I did all kinds of things to experiment what did I like in my coffee for the morning. And it worked pretty well until it didn't. At which point there was a come to Jesus moment where I had to clean up my morning drink. And that's the next step. So I like people to be at 16-8 again for a season, enough that you feel stable, that you've tested out your social environment, that this is where you, I mean, I was there for over 6 months. Like, okay, it's good enough for me. I wasn't really looking for weight loss. I really wanted to feel good. And I was doing that at 16-8 with a morning coffee. But there did come a point where I needed to say, I got to raise the bar a little bit. And that's when I moved to KetoCONTINUUM number 6, which is called Advanced 16-8. Again, I was still checking urine ketone strips at the time. You can check blood numbers at this point, but it is not mandatory. I start getting mandatory at number 7 with checking blood meters. And some people never need to advance past number 5. They do fine. They do great. But if you're trying to improve your diabetes, to get your immune system stronger, and you cannot get your numbers to improve, you cannot get that morning fasting blood sugar under 100, or I like to hit a fasting sugar of 60s before I quit my 72-hour fast. If you're struggling to get those morning sugars down, to get your liver empty of glycogen, your muscle cells empty of glycogen, that's going to be a blood sugar in your 60s. So if you're looking for that and you're not able to do that, that's where I tell them they're going to have to clean up their morning drink. Remove all calories and sweeteners from their morning drink. It means there's no fat, no MCT, no butter, no sweeteners, no calories. The other 16 hours are only salt, water, black coffee, or tea. And I tell them, don't remove the fat from that morning ritual until this phase. I have so many people they'll look at this list and they'll say, well, I'm just never going to put fat in my coffee. I'll just not do that. And what I see happen is they never raise those fat-based hormones. They never get to feel a full satiety because their cholecystokinin, which is made from fat and responds to eating fat, but it sends this message to your brain to say, you're not hungry. And there's about 15 other fat-based hormones that do the same thing right along with cholecystokinin, peptide YY, looking at your response to food that you just don't feel hungry. You can't white knuckle it forever. You really do need hormones on your side. And that's why I say leave the fat in your coffee until you get to KetoCONTINUUM number 6, which is Advanced 16-8. So again, there's still 16 hours of the day where you don't put any chewing. It's the one thing I didn't mention in 5 is if you're a gum chewer, this is where I have you deal with your gum chewing, is that you only chew gum during the 8 hours where you can eat. The rest of the time, you need to not be chewing gum. It's a habit, and it has a trickle to the ditch of falling off the ketogenic diet. It also makes it more difficult to suppress the insulin when you're constantly chewing. It stimulates your pancreas to produce just enough insulin. And if you're insulin resistant, it's actually a lot of insulin they produce. So I need you to shut that chewing off for the 16 hours in the day. You can chew it for the 8 hours in the day, but that's it. So when you get to advanced, then I tell you to take out the fat in your coffee. So again, some people never go past the baseline number 6. Some people stay at baseline number 5. And those that have the best numbers are the ones who say, yeah, I feel great. I feel fine. Why would I do anything more? And the answer is exactly. I wouldn't go any further if you feel that good. But if you need it, if you need to step to the next level, that is what I call 23-in-1. And OMAD is the common acronym for 1 meal a day, but I don't like that. People screw that up all the time. They have one real meal where they sit down and eat, and it is ketogenic, but they have a handful of nuts in the morning. They put fat in their coffee, or they have a handful of nuts at night. They put fat in their coffee in the morning. They have all kinds of places where calories are coming in. You notice that we did not talk about calories when we were up here at this high fat phase. When you're a beginner, when you're even in that 16-8 for Keto Continuum number 5, we do not talk calories. We are depending on you to have enough fat to resurrect your fat-based hormones. And when you're there, and some of my insulin-resistant patients, this took them 6 months. They screwed it up a little bit. They didn't have enough fat. They kept trying to cut calories before the fat-based hormones were there, and they might have gotten through the first fast, but the second fast, they felt awful. You'll know that you're fat adapted because the next few steps I'm going to talk about aren't terrible. I can be 48 hours since my last snitch of food, and I feel just fine. I feel just fine. I don't feel lightheaded. I don't have a craving. I don't feel, I can say irritable, but it's really not that irritable. But the reason I can do that is I have the hormones that are needed to sustain life without food for a few hours, and they're in high supply. When you've been insulin resistant and you try to march down this keto continuum so quickly, hop to OMAD 23-in-1, and they just don't get the results that they want. And I'm telling them, you gotta clean up the rest of the time. If you've left salt, specifically, I'm a big fan of red bin salt. You can find that in the links below. If you have not added a mineral-dense salt, which is pink Himalayan, but I'll tell you, I've studied them. Nothing beats red bin salt for how much value you get in a sprinkle of salt. You're going to have a tough time marching past Keto Continuum number 6 onward without having a really high-quality salt frequently in your journey. I would start you a little sooner than that, and I really do a good job of explaining what that's all about in that course. All calories and sweeteners are in 1 hour. 23 hours, only salt, water, tea, and coffee. And my gum tours, now you have 1 hour to chew gum. Yeah, it can be tough. Again, this is where blood checking really does matter, so I push people to say, nah, you really got to step up and check your blood meters here. The next and final metabolism that makes the baseline metabolism is called advanced 23-in-1. And again, you'll see that I divided these 4 through 7 into you do the work. It does take discipline. But if you get down to number 8, you're going to need some advanced psychology. You're going to need the self-talk or at least a support group. I really recommend a support group from 8 onward that says to you the things you're going to need to hear when you feel like, I just can't do this. But the psychology involved with the next few steps, it really is a huge part of the successful process of being ketones for life. And that is, there's a lot of self-talk that goes on that you cover up with eating. The thoughts and the time you spend scheduling food is amazing to me. And I used to do it just like you, so it's weird, but the energy put into focusing on what did you last eat, when are you going to eat next, what's your next menu, is the fridge full of this, and that constant noise in your head, when you take it away, it's why the meditation part of fasting becomes a big subtext of successful ketogenic doers for life, ketonians, whatever the word is we use these days. So advanced 23-1 is now you move the 1 hour that you eat into the daylight hours. I like to say 11 hours following sunrise, and I like it to be a little earlier than that. We don't want you eating late at night. So if the sun is up at 6 o'clock in the morning, we want you done eating by 5 o'clock. If the sun is up by 6:30 or 7, we definitely want you done eating by 6 o'clock. And what you're doing is, as you put that food earlier in the day, you closer match your cortisol rise, which does release the glycogen that's in your liver, that's in your muscles, and that glucose floods your blood. So when you show up with a morning fasting glucose that's so stinking high you can't figure out where it's coming from, I'm telling you, you still haven't emptied the glycogen, or you have so much glycogen that you churn. If you fast until you get those glucoses into the 65, and then you eat again, you quickly fill up that glycogen because you've got so much history with high insulin. That is reset when you stop stimulating it so much. So the reason we move 23-in-1 earlier in the day is we want it to closer match that cortisol burst of glucose that happens with every sunrise. It's going to happen whether or not you sleep in or not. That sunrise isn't something you actually have to see. It's your brain's signal of being in sync with the sun. And even the night shift workers still have a morning glucose rise because of their cortisol rise that is synced with the sunrise. We want that meal closer to sunrise. Now, I don't tell you got to keep it before noon, but I do have some patients that is where we've ended up saying, I really need you to not eat after noon. You're going to have that meal first thing in the morning. You need to eat to satiety. You have to eat until you feel full. But for now, that needs to happen before noon hour. I don't put that in this official rule book. I usually use that for somebody who's been severely insulin resistant, and it's also huge psychology to not eat from noon on. That's where a lot of our social time comes from. That's where a lot of our food rituals come from. And if you tell somebody they can't do that, it's usually a battle. We don't need to do that. We got plenty of other battles to fight. All right, so the last phase.
Please subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. Stay tuned.